My wife cheated on me with our lawyer, then tried to steal our $250, $0 inheritance. Now she's falsely claiming I'm mentally incompetent so she can take everything in the divorce. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be nothing like the woman I thought I married. Honestly, it feels like I stumbled into a nightmare I can't wake up from. The thing is, it all started with little signs, things I brushed off or didn't want to see. But then, the universe threw a curveball so brutal I still can't believe it's real. It was around 6 months ago when I first started noticing the changes. Emily, my wife of 10 years, had always been a bit bitchy and high maintenance, but lately she was acting downright strange. She'd come home late from work meetings, and when I'd ask, she'd dismiss me with a sharp comment or a fake smile. She was always on her phone, hiding it when I entered the room, and her usual flirtatious attitude with her friends had turned into something colder, more distant. One night I came home early from work, something I rarely do, and I saw her slip her phone into her purse as I was unlocking the door. She looked nervous, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. That was odd because she's usually pretty confident. When I asked her where she'd been, she shrugged and said she met some friends for drinks, but I knew better. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she fidgeted, it felt wrong. Then came the real shocker. I started noticing her checking her phone obsessively, deleting messages, hiding receipts, and even changing her passwords. I found out she was using a different email account, one I had no access to, and she was making plans, secret plans, with someone. My gut told me something was seriously off. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I decided to do a little digging. Nothing invasive, just enough to get a sense of what was happening. I checked her phone while she was out, and that's when I saw the messages. They weren't just friendly texts or harmless flirtation. No, they were explicit. She was talking about sex with our lawyer, Mark, like he was her new best friend. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my partner, was cheating on me with someone I trusted, someone who was supposed to be helping us with our legal issues. And the worst part, the messages weren't just about sex. They were about how she wanted to steal our inheritance, our $250, $0 that we'd been saving for a house. She was planning to manipulate Mark into helping her get it all, claiming I was mentally incompetent so she could walk away with everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? And what the hell was I supposed to do? I thought about confronting her immediately, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. This was bigger than just a fight. It was betrayal on every level, and I had to think carefully about my next move. The moment I saw those messages, everything changed. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was like my entire world was crumbling in an instant. I remember sitting on the couch, phone trembling in my hand, trying to process what I just read. Emily had been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. She'd been sneaking around, planning how to take everything we had, and worst of all, she was doing it with Mark, our lawyer, someone I trusted to help us, to protect us. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept going over the texts, the photos she'd sent him, explicit, dirty, full of promises, and the way she talked about the inheritance. She was so casual about it, like it was her right, like I was just some obstacle to be removed. I felt a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and utter disbelief. How could she do this? How could she lie so brazenly and think she could get away with it? The next day, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I arranged to come home early, under the guise of a business meeting, but really I just wanted to catch her in the act or get some answers. When I walked into the house, she was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with a cup of coffee. Her face changed immediately when she saw me, that fake smile slipping away. "Hey honey," she said, her voice too sweet, too innocent. "You're home early." I looked her straight in the eyes and laid it out. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, about her plans to steal our inheritance, and how she was trying to manipulate the situation so she could take everything. Her reaction was stunning. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and started lying right then and there. "Oh, come on, Ryan. You're just being paranoid. I don't know what you saw, but you're overthinking things," she snapped. "Mark, just helping us with some legal stuff, that's all. And if you think I'd cheat on you or steal from you, you've got it all wrong. You're just insecure, that's why you're accusing me." I felt my blood boil. How could she sit there and lie so easily? I showed her the messages on my phone, the explicit conversations, the plans she'd made. She looked furious, then suddenly started crying, saying I was crazy, that I was accusing her of something she'd never do. She claimed I was jealous, insecure, just trying to ruin her reputation, her marriage. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, and I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. That confrontation was the tipping point. I felt hurt, betrayed, and furious all at once. I wanted to believe she was innocent, but the evidence was overwhelming. I started questioning everything. Our entire life together, the promises we made, the future I thought we had. It was like waking up from a dream and realizing it was all a lie. My mind kept circling back to the money, the inheritance, and how she was planning to take it all just like she'd planned with Mark. From that moment on, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to protect what was mine, what we'd worked so hard for. I started gathering everything: screenshots, bank statements, emails. I knew the legal part was coming, and I had no intention of letting her manipulate the system. I also wanted to see how deep her lies went, how far she was willing to go to take everything from me. The betrayal cut deep, but it lit a fire in me I didn't know I was done being the nice guy. If she wanted a war, I was ready to fight for what was mine. After confronting Emily that day, everything felt different. The trust was shattered, and I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I started making plans secretly, quietly. I needed proof, undeniable evidence, before I did anything more. The last thing I wanted was to confront her again and have her deny everything, claiming I was paranoid or crazy. I needed to be sure, and I needed to prepare. I hired a private investigator. It sounds extreme, but I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. The pie was discreet, and within a week I had enough to confirm what I suspected. Emily had been meeting Mark in secret, not just for legal advice, but for sex. They'd been sneaking around for months, probably since the start of her work meetings. The reports were detailed, and I couldn't deny the truth anymore. Emily was cheating, planning to steal our inheritance, and lying to my face all along. The worst part, she'd been so convincing, so bitchy and dismissive when I brought up my suspicions. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of not trusting her, and then turn around and lie straight to my face. That kind of manipulation made my blood boil. How could she be so cold, so calculating? It was like she was willing to destroy everything we had just to get her hands on a chunk of money and have her affair. Once I had the evidence, my mind raced. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings, not without a fight. I started consulting a divorce lawyer, someone who specialized in financial fraud and infidelity. I wanted to know my options, especially with regard to the inheritance. I was determined to stop her from taking even a penny more than she was entitled to, if she even deserved that much. But I also realized I couldn't just confront her again without a plan. Emily was manipulative, and I wasn't about to let her spin some sob story about how I was abusive or mentally incompetent just to get her way. That's when I started thinking about how she'd been acting: bitchy, dismissive, always trying to gaslight me. She'd lied so many times I'd lost count. I knew she'd try to turn the tables, play the victim, and claim I was crazy or unstable. I decided I had to be strategic. I set up recordings of her phone calls, secured all our financial records, and contacted a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd tried to move or hide. I also told a few close friends what was happening, just in case she tried to make a scene or lie to others. I was done being the naive husband. She had pushed me to the edge, and I was ready to fight back hard. In the midst of all this, Emily kept up her act, acting innocent, acting hurt, claiming she was the victim. She said I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I was projecting my insecurities. She even went as far as to accuse me of mental incompetence, trying to get a court to declare me unfit so she could take everything. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was willing to destroy me legally, emotionally, everything, just to get her hands on the inheritance and her affair partner. I felt a mix of rage and despair. How had I let it come to this? I'd given her everything, my trust, my love, my stability, and she'd repaid me with lies, betrayal, and greed. But I also knew I wasn't going to let her win, not without a fight. I was ready to expose her, to fight for what was rightfully mine, and to make sure she paid for everything she'd done. The game was on, and I was determined to come out on top. I spent the next couple of weeks building my case. Every document, every phone call, every piece of evidence I could find or record. I knew Emily was cunning. She'd try to spin things, lie her way out of it, and manipulate the situation. That's why I had to be 2 steps ahead. I brought in a forensic accountant to trace every dollar, every transfer she tried to hide, every suspicious expense. I also made sure to keep everything under lock and key. I didn't trust her not to try to destroy evidence or spin some story to the court. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, pretending to be the innocent victim, crying about how I was crazy and paranoid, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation. She'd throw tantrums, shout, and accuse me of being emotionally unstable. That was her go-to move: gaslight, manipulate, lie. She even started claiming I was mentally incompetent, trying to get a court to declare me unfit so she could walk away with the inheritance and everything else. I knew her game and I wasn't falling for it. One day, she went even further. She called a lawyer, her lawyer, Mark, I assume, to draft some kind of emergency motion claiming I was mentally unstable. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I filed a counter-motion, presenting all the evidence I had collected: screenshots, recordings, bank statements. I made it clear I was aware of her affair, her plans to steal our money, and her attempts to manipulate the legal system. I wanted full custody of the inheritance, and I was prepared to fight dirty if I had to. Things heated up quickly after that. Emily's lawyer tried to push her side, claiming I was unstable, that I'd been abusive, and that I was trying to sabotage her. It was all lies, of course, but I knew she'd do anything to win. She even started spreading rumors to mutual friends, trying to paint me as the villain. I felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare where everyone was against me, and the only person I could trust was myself. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized how deep her lies went, how much she'd betrayed me, and how she was willing to destroy everything for her own greed and selfishness. I wasn't just fighting for the inheritance anymore. I was fighting to save the last shred of dignity I had left. I started preparing for the worst, knowing that Emily would do whatever it took to come out on top. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd wake up feeling betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd spend nights worrying if I'd done enough, if I'd missed some clue, some sign that could turn the tide. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her manipulate me or gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I had the truth, and I was going to use it. I had become a man who was ready to fight for what he deserved, nothing more, nothing less. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was prepared for the war ahead. The legal battle dragged on, and every day felt like walking through a minefield. Emily's lies grew more elaborate. She claimed I was mentally unstable, that I was trying to control her, and that I was the one cheating, trying to turn the tables. Her words were venomous, and she played the victim so convincingly it sometimes made me question my own sanity. But I had the evidence now, enough to drown her in her own lies if it came to that. I remember the moment I finally sat across from her lawyer in court, knowing I had all the ammunition I needed. My heart was pounding, but I kept my composure. I presented everything: the texts, the recordings, the bank transfers. I showed the court how Emily had been planning to manipulate Mark into helping her steal our inheritance, how she'd been lying about her work meetings, and how she had been orchestrating her whole scheme behind my back. Emily's face twisted in anger and panic, but her lies crumbled under the weight of the facts. She tried to claim I was mentally incompetent, but I had my own psychiatrist's report, an independent evaluation confirming I was perfectly sane. That was a critical blow for her. The judge looked at her, then at me, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I was going to come out of this with some semblance of justice. But Emily wasn't going down without a fight. The day after the hearing, she launched an aggressive smear campaign, spreading rumors to friends and family that I was unstable and dangerous. She filed a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing her. It was all part of her desperate attempt to control the narrative and weaken my case. Despite all that, I stayed focused. I had to. I knew her game. She was trying to split the court's sympathy to make me look like the villain so she could walk away with everything. Our money, the house, the inheritance, and maybe even custody of the kids if she could spin it that way. But I had the truth, and I was determined it would come out. I kept documenting everything, staying calm and preparing for the final fight. In my heart, I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about betrayal, trust, and justice. Emily had lied, cheated, and schemed her way into the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. I'd loved her once, believed in us, and now I was fighting to protect what was left, myself, my dignity, and the little bit of respect I still had. The worst part, I still couldn't believe she'd do something so cold and calculated. It was like I'd married a stranger who was willing to destroy everything just for her own greed. And I was determined she wouldn't get away with it. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice, about proving that I wasn't going to be a pawn in Emily's twisted game. The judge saw through her lies, her manipulations, and her outright betrayal. The inheritance was awarded to me, and her attempts to claim mental incompetence were dismissed after the psychiatrist's report proved I was perfectly sane. Emily's reputation took a hit, and her plans to steal everything crumbled. The divorce was messy, of course. She fought hard, throwing accusations left and right, trying to spin her lies into some kind of victimhood, but I refused to be drawn into her web. I knew who she was now, greedy, manipulative, and utterly self-serving. The worst part was knowing how much I'd loved her, how much I'd trusted her. That trust was gone now, replaced by a bitter sense of betrayal I don't think I'll ever fully get over. I moved out of the house, took some time to heal, and started rebuilding my life. It's been a long road, full of anger, sadness, and frustration, but I'm finally getting to a place where I can breathe again. The scars of betrayal are still there, but I've learned a lot about myself. I learned that trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired, and that sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to fight for it, no matter how brutal the fight gets. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated Emily's capacity for deception. She was so good at pretending, so convincing in her lies, that I almost didn't see her for what she really was. But I also learned something important. Never turn a blind eye to the signs. Trust your gut, gather evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if it means going through hell first. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people really are. Protect yourself, stay vigilant, and never let anyone manipulate your life for their own gain. Because in the end, the truth will come out, and you have to be ready to fight for it.